You're listening to Errol Parker and Clancy Overall, editors of the Batuta Advocate, on Desert Rock FM. Hello listeners, you are tuned in to the Batuta Advocate on Desert Rock FM, our weekly news radio show which is now being syndicated via the internet to everyone around the country and around the world as a podcast. Today's episode marks episode 11. I'm Clancy Overall.
And I'm Errol Parker, and we have a bit on today, don't we, Clancy? We have an exclusive interview with Australian TV's original heartthrob, Osher Günsberg, but we'll get to that in a minute. First up, we've got some local news. A couple of young blokes have reeled in quite a catch this week, haven't they?
Yes, Errol. Two teenagers fishing down at the Teeter Waterhole just out of the Flight Park district have pulled in a large sum of money in an unmarked sports bag today.
120 big ones I've heard on the street.
Yes, 120 grand is the rumour. Quite a find. But it's not party time just yet for Billy and James Walter because they've had to hand it into the police, and we'll have to wait 12 months until they can actually touch and pocket this cold hard cash.
Yeah, another thing that I've also heard on the street, Clancy, is that they've received a few threatening letters. They've been sent to the Walters' house, and they've also had a few spooky phone calls. So they decided it was probably best that the cash was left in the hands of the authorities for the foreseeable future.
Yes, that'll happen if you start telling the blokes down at the pub that your sons have found, an unmarked bag of cash in the waterhole. We could put that on their old man Glenn, actually. But the money is as good as theirs. I can't see anyone coming forward to claim that kind of money, not to the police anyway.
Well, you might be right, Clancy. Hopefully they get the money. God knows they need it down there. Elsewhere around town, there's been a big drug bust on a property on the Batuta city limits this week.
Yes, police raided a property and seized around 50 cannabis plants that were almost in full bloom, as well as 3 exotic snakes.
Yeah, we had a reporter on the ground up there. He spoke to probationary constable Mikey McDougall from the Batuta Heights Police Department, and he said that the street value of the haul was about $3,000. And the trees were hidden on a vineyard owned by a local winemaker called Lionel Manetti.
But those street values, as we know, Errol, are quite often horseshit, especially if we are talking about bush buds.
Well, the cops, they always overinflate their figures. Nevertheless, Lionel Manetti, the owner of the property, is a manager, is a full-time resident, but in an interesting twist, he is saying that he doesn't know where the plants have come from. He's claiming that someone has snuck onto his land and planted and indeed maintained those trees, all without him knowing.
Well, we will be keeping a very close eye on this case to see how it unfolds, and I know my nephew Bryden will be as well.
Well, looking further down the chart on the wall here today, I don't think there's too much left on local news. What's been happening around the country? I believe there's been a few updates in the Banking Royal Commission.
Yes. Speaking of cunning Italian landowners, a prominent Nonno has made national headlines this week after claiming he always knew about this misconduct that has been perpetrated by the Big Four in the recent findings from the Banking Royal Commission. Yes, he's just one of many ethnic patriarchs who claim to have known about this stuff for a while, Errol, and in turn has spent a lifetime burying cash and refusing to declare personal income. The headline goes, Nonno says he always knew the banks are the no good.
Yeah, and from one tongue twister to another, the retired house painter's name was Sal Carbone. He says we all laughed at him, but guess what? He's the one laughing now.
Yes, good old Nonno. He says it's not the first time he's been given justification for his habit of burying cash under the fig tree.
Yeah, all the stuff with the ATO last year with the payroll rorting. The tax man, they're crooks too, says Sal. He said the banks, the ATO, the lot of them, they're all crooks. And it's beginning to look like he's the one who's not taking crazy pills, Clancy.
Not wrong at all. He's speaking a bit of sense, in fact. It sounds like intuition, if anything. And speaking of clever financial operators, we spoke to another money-savvy local this week who stirred a few people up. The headline on that story was one you penned, Errol. Rent is dead money, says 28-year-old bag of shit still living at home.
Yeah, look, I was doing a bit of investigative journalism, some good old-fashioned real reporting earlier this week, and I spoke to a few members, one particularly apathetic member of Generation Y, and he reckons you're wasting your money by paying rent. It's money going out of your pocket into someone else's.
Yes, this bloke, Errol, Danny, his name was, that you interviewed. He's a stay-at-home son, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, Clancy, he is. Young Danny is still living with his parents up in that leafy enclave of Batuta Grove with all the bankers, the lawyers, the doctors, and all the other bourgeois people that will indeed be eaten first when the purge comes. And he reckons that most of your money, as opposed to being spent on rent, should be spent on experiences like traveling and enjoying the cultures of other people around the world.
He did say it gets a bit testy at times, though, didn't he?
One example that he did give me was when his old man starts a mower at around 7 o'clock every Sunday morning. Yeah, it can get a bit testy, especially if I'm hungover. And once I lost it at Dad, and I called him a fuckhead from my bedroom window. And anyway, he didn't take that too kindly, and he come racing up the stairs with a length of polypipe, and he flogged me until I started crying, and I begged him for mercy. Sorry, I'm just reading this back verbatim. And he said, it's still better than being a rent cuck, whatever that is. Must be some new lingo the youth are using these days.
Yes, 28-year-old, he is rapidly making a dash away from his youth. And it sounds like he had it coming, really.
Yeah, he was a painful little shit, if I'm going to be honest. Anyway, moving on from Danny, what else did we cover this week, Clancy?
Well, there was that story about the voice contestant who tugged on the heartstrings earlier in the week.
It was an extremely moving automotive story, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Automotive and emotive. The headline we ran on that one is as follows. Voice contestant tells heartbreaking story of how he backed his Falcon into a tow bar.
And the pain really shone through in that rendition of Pearl Jam's Last Kiss, which I'm not sure many of our readers would know is actually a cover song itself.
Yes, the 43-year-old named Glenn told Delta the story after he finished performing. He said, about 2 years ago now, I was pulling out of Dan Murphy's in Wynnum when I caught myself perving on some promo girls outside Macca's. While holding back tears, Glenn went on to explain, I didn't see it, but I heard it. Quite emotional and, heartbreaking, also heartwarming story of love lost and love found as he backed his Ford sedan into the tow bar of a liquor delivery truck.
Yeah, I don't normally watch that stuff, but I heard it was coming up, so I flicked it on, and it was really powerful, much more powerful than the young man who overcooked his pork on MasterChef I was watching. Yeah, and to be honest, I think Australia's really pioneered that television format, reality television, as the world knows it right now. And one of the key contributors to this growing phenomenon, this garden of roses that we've built on our television sets, is Osher Günsberg. He's just rolled into the studio, so let's get on with it.
Well, here he is. We've been trying to get a hold of him for a while. He's been trying to get a hold of us. He's been a big reader for a while. One of our first kind of fans from outside the Diamantina. Osher, thank you for joining us.
Look,
my gosh.
it's great to be here, gentlemen. You said, left at the roundabout at Longreach.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't say that it was then another 800 kilometres.
Yeah.
The Landsborough Highway is a punish at the best of times. But, that was a long wee break.
Well, if you're going through Longreach, you've gone the wrong way. You don't need to go that high.
What visit to this part of the world isn't complete without a pass through the Stockman's Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
And the Qantas Museum.
I mean, let's be honest. That was actually Longreach. It was nice to be back there. It was actually the first place I saw the Milky Way from horizon to horizon. And there really is something quite profound the first time you see that stretching out before you, and that only part of Australia that you can get to it. But it's lovely here. The studios are fantastic that you've built here. Koala Studios are great, even though you've gone to great trouble to seal it off from the sounds of this part of the world,
this bustling metropolis.
You really can never get rid of that kind of overwhelming kind of sulfate smell from the artesian water, can you? It just sneaks in everywhere. Stings the nostrils.
He's a learned man. We're learning with Osher. You've obviously travelled the country a lot from a very young age.
Yes.
What we want to talk to you about, and I'm sure you speak about this at any time you run into someone who grew up with you, and there were a lot of people in this country that grew up with you.
Yeah, many people claim to be my cousin.
Yeah,
they're not.
How did you get into that position, which, I mean, in a pre-internet world, was the number one gig for a young media identity?
Well, it takes me back to the time that I actually was in this part of Queensland.
Yeah.
You gentlemen may notice that I'm wearing hearing aids.
Yep.
So there was a time in my life when I was a roadie.
Right.
Now, for folks who don't know, there was a time before DJs where the local pub, like the Beer Garden here, would have like a cover band that would play 45-minute sets a night, and usually rehashing whatever's going on the radio. You know, your Garden Variety, Chisel, Farnham, Little River Band, if you really want to go a little kind of more obscure on the Farnham.
LRB.
Yeah, but those early years, you know, I think it was like early Kernaghan, and you know, we would often see a young guy who used to play in a cover band by the name of Fractured Mirror, Urban Keith. Keithy, he was good. Played in a band called Fractured Mirror. He was a nice guy.
That was during his wild days too.
Yeah, it truly was. Yeah. So we often Keith would play the afternoon set for the Beer Garden punters, and then while I was loading in, I was a lighting guy. So I was the lighting guy, and we had a truck called Lightning, which was not fast. It was ironic.
Yeah.
And so I'd spent a couple of years hauling road cases in and out of the back of a truck. And, you know, as you both know, you know, any work that gets calluses on the hands after a while gets tiring, and you think, I've got to do something else. Because I really, you know, I didn't realise at that time, but the permanent hearing damage and the 2 hernias were like, I'll find something else to do. So to answer your question, Clancy, I ended up kind of unemployed. Well, I was playing I ended up playing in my own band, and we were playing original music, which then that therefore means you're on the dole. And I was like,
in Brisbane,
in Rio de Janeiro, and in the cosmopolitan southeast. And so
the sex capital of Queensland.
I didn't quite know. You know, it's like I can't do this. So what I ended up doing was I hand wrote letters to every radio station in the city, going, look, I'll do anything for cash. Not even cash. I'll do anything. I just want to be there. I just want to, not even exposure. I just want to be in the room. I will come and I will pull your CDs out. I will sweep up. I will make coffee. I'll do anything you want. And in my time as a roadie, I had met a bar manager at a nightclub called Mary Street, which was, you guessed it, on Mary Street in Brisbane. And he had left that job and turned out to be the promotions guy at B105 in Brisbane. Nothing but great rock and roll. And
this is pre-Jamie Dunn?
No, it was a Jamie Dunn heyday.
Right.
Jamie Dunn heyday. I don't know. Do you syndicate Jamie Dunn on 96.5?
He's on Murray Country in Brisbane.
Right.
Yeah, with Casadale's son.
So he hasn't been on Desert FM for a while.
No, we haven't got him since Agro days.
Right. But so anyway, so I went in there and I drove around the promotional trucks, which were a Nissan Patrol 5-speed stick, mind you. It was pretty good. And they were called the Black Thunders, and I gave away icy cold cans of Coke to punters for years, and that's how I got in.
Party with the Breaker Girls.
No, there was none of that. I was earning $8 an hour, Clancy. But that was it. Yeah. I got in, and
that's coming from roadie, and we say that there's a lot of tough jobs in this country. Bumping in and bumping out at both ends of a gig or any kind of thing is got to be one of the most. I wouldn't say physically exerting. It is physically exerting, but it's just never ending.
Well, that's the thing. Because I'm writing a book at the moment. I'm writing I guess you call it a memoir, but it's more of a kind of a tale of here's this person that's been in your face for the last 20-something years. Yeah. By the way, he's been managing life with a mental illness. Here's the things you've seen him do. Here's what was happening, what was going on. Right. So it's just a way to talk about it, because we do need to talk about these things. And and so it's quite fresh in my mind, but this is at the time when smoking was still allowed in nightclubs, when security guards didn't have individual numbers. Time before CCTV or closed circuit television was there's a couple of interesting nights at the Grosvenor Hotel in Rockhampton, let me tell you that for nothing. When certain people tried to barge the door, and a couple of boys took a couple other boys out the back. Oh boy. Anyway, there really is nothing like the smell of a nightclub in the day, in the baking 36-degree Bundaberg heat. Crystal's nightclub it was. When the cigarette smoke normally serves as a blanket that will kind of shield your nostrils from what else is going on, but the fermenting sugar rotted into the carpet mixed with a vomit spilled beer is just It stings the nostrils. That's all I can
They
tell
wonder
you.
why you don't drink.
I don't drink because I'm an excellent alcoholic. That's why I don't drink. But
I'm sure that only contributed to drinking. Like,
well, to be fair, that time in my life was, I was 17 when I started working in the music industry, and I wasn't able to go into these places, and I saw what it looked like to be just a legless 18-year-old. I was like, I don't think that looks very good. I don't think I'll do that. But that was before I discovered that alcohol could also help me deal with depressing social anxiety and give me, I guess, a beer blanket in which I could then, a suit of armor, which I could then go out into the world, and I took to it with relish.
Well, you were always on stage. You were always in a position where every other person in the country would be nervous, right? You were constantly talking to just the biggest acts, and that kind of got in. Channel V was probably the pinnacle, right?
Well, the pinnacle of being on telly was when I did a show in North America. I am at this point still, I believe, the only Australian to ever host live network primetime television in the States. That was on a dancing competition show.
Take that, Rove.
A dancing competition. Look, you cannot say anything bad about Rove McManus. He is the most successful independent television producer this country has ever seen. He's the nicest human being ever. And is a very, very hardworking man who has created more hours of television than you or I have had hot dinners. Anyway,
we're trying to get him to turn on people. It looks like it's not going to happen.
No. But you mentioned like the pressure of being on camera.
Yeah, booze helps, right?
For some. Not at all. I was never drunk on air, except for this one particular show we did around the time of the Olympics, which I hosted with a drummer by the name of Cram, who played in Spiderbait.
Yeah.
And
I remember Cram.
There was like 2 weeks there. It was a bit blurry, but I never drank on air. And the thing about having anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, and social anxiety is that you're constantly terrified of what other people might think of you. When else am I absolutely 100% sure of what they're making their judgment on than when they're all being quiet and I'm on camera and I'm talking and they've shut up? Those few 10, 20, 30-minute seconds that I was on camera was absolute serenity, complete bliss, and I chased that. I would go through. I would sometimes, but when I was really sick, I would leave the house with a trucker hat pulled down low, so I didn't have to look at anyone. I would look at people's feet so I could get through the crowds of people, and then but when it was 3, 2, 1, go, all the shitty noise in my head would suddenly stop, and I just had this, anxiety is a lack of control. Anxiety is a lack of, I don't know what's going to happen. When I'm more in control than I'm when on the radio microphone or on a television camera. So, it's actually quite the opposite. The alcohol was a way to, after all that goes away, it's like, oh my God, I'm so excited, but now it's 2 a.m. and I still can't sleep. Beer.
Right. That's an interesting thing, because a lot of people see all you guys.
Am I collectively answering for everyone on television?
All that young crop of you that were getting around Channel V that time.
Yes,
you were working a lot. You'd be on TV all the time.
And what was extraordinary was that our most loyal followings came from out here, Ostar. Ostar was an extraordinary part of what we did, and it allowed me later in years when we took our Channel V bus around, when we got to see parts of the country that most Australians, they'll fly overseas before they get a chance to see what's actually happening in the country. And I was just absolutely blessed to see, not only through the work I did as a roadie, but also touring in my own bands, and then through the work I did with Channel V, just seeing parts of this extraordinary country and meeting people that were like, I'd meet the most amazing people, like guys my age who were like, I went to Brisbane once. There's too much going on. I like it better out here. And he was like, why do I think I've got the right idea living in my house in Bondi, which is smaller than this studio that we're in, thinking that I've got the greatest thing in the world, when this bloke, lives every day. He sees the Milky Way from horizon to horizon every night. He knows everyone in his street. Everyone knows him. If he has any problems, his community's right there for him. Yet I don't know my own fucking next door neighbour. Yeah. Have I got the right idea? Yeah. I probably don't. And that was about when I really started thinking about that kind of stuff around 2001, 2002. It was particularly when we did a gig out in Broken Hill. And I remember, I was still running at that point before the old man arthritis kicked in. And I remember I'd run about 10 or 12 Ks every day. And I remember running out of town. I used to just run for half an hour in one direction and turn around. So I got about 6 Ks out. And as I'm getting out, I can see up ahead of me, and there's a bit of, the mirages on the road that you see. They look like a puddle of water. I get closer. I see this thing on the left of the road. Like, what's that? Don't understand. And I get closer, and it's this fucking gigantic wedge-tailed eagle with this kangaroo carcass just just going for it like an Attenborough documentary. And I run past it, and this thing looks like if you or I was setting up to do a kettlebell squat. You know, it was like its torso was as long as me, its head was as big as mine, its talons was as big as my fingers. And it looked at me like, I could fucking take you if I wanted.
Yeah.
I've already got some food here, so I'm not going to touch you. Like, when else do you get a chance? The people go to Africa to see animals that can kill them. We've got it right fucking here.
Yeah, yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah. So it was good that you guys got to get around like that.
Yeah.
Because there was I suppose it was probably back off the era where Triple J had just started to look at the regional towns, and with that you find the Silverchairs and the Newcastle. There's something going on in Bundy. You know, you got
the same people that took Triple J National took Channel V. So the same guy, Barry Chapman is his name. He took Triple J National, and
it worked.
Oh, mate, it totally changed how I feel about non-metropolitan Australia. Growing up in Brisbane in the 80s.
What part of Brisbane were you in?
We grew up in the leafy green suburb of Kenmore.
Yeah, right.
And then later in Chapel Hill, which is not what it is now. Chapel Hill was, and for a while I lived.
It was kind of on the way to Ipswich, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it's not quite. I lived in Brookfield for a while, when Gap Creek Road, before it was even sealed. It was still a dirt road when I lived there. But we grew up on a Joh Bjelke-Petersen. We grew up. A lot of people have no clue that in this country, in this very state, there are laws that South Africa went, that's a fucking good idea. Let's base apartheid on that. We wrote the racial separation laws that apartheid was based on, and that fucking happened in our lifetimes. There are people alive.
We like to call it the corrugated iron curtain.
Good Lord, man. Bjelke-Petersen's, it was feudal. It was absolutely feudal. I mean, I remember when I was as a roadie, we went to Kingaroy once, which is where Bjelke-Petersen was from.
The big peanut.
And you're on this red asphalt. I don't know where they got the road base from. They must have just dug it up by the side of the road and then mixed it with the tarmac, because it's red. It's the same colour as the road around you, the dirt around you. There's red asphalt for about 100 clicks, and then boom, 4-lane highway. You're like, right, okay.
Yeah.
As you're coming into Kingaroy.
A little bit of that. Russell Hinds also was a minister at the time. Had
minister for everything.
The highway diverted next to his pub on the way to the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know if people realise what...
It's the Wild West.
Mate, it was, like I said, it was feudal at best.
Yeah.
It was feudal at best.
Apparently he did die a poor man.
Rusty?
No.
Joh?
Joh, yeah.
According to
what, morally poor? Or?
Well, we had this discussion with Bob Catter.
One of his young proteges, actually.
Yeah.
Wow.
We asked him if everything Joh did was above board, and he says, look, I went and saw him in his last house, and I said, he didn't die in a mansion, he died in a small house, 2-bedroom house with no air conditioning. And crooked men, they die in huge houses. Not these blokes in these small houses here, they're honest.
I'm sure there's a bit of cash buried down there in South Bank.
Man, I've got to tell you. It was a weird time.
It would have been weird if he did successfully become the Prime Minister.
He went for it. He really went for it.
I think this country would be a bit different now if he got in. Yeah,
he bit off more than he could chew. He did, and there's a lot to be said about how that went sour. But I think it was the federal Nats decided maybe you're getting a bit too big for your boots, Kingaroy.
It was, but I guess why I'm kind of passionate about it is that we really can't forget. We cannot forget that this happened, and it's only 30 years ago that he ended. It ended his reign, and there are people who would be in their 50s now who were juniors underneath him, looking up, going, "Yes, this is the way for everything." And these people are well and truly,
or maybe even on the jury.
Yes, exactly. These people are well and truly in the system, and it doesn't go away. This stuff is still around, and
now,
it's full on.
Where did you tell us a bit about your folks? How did they end up? What's the background?
Mum's Lithuanian, Dad's Czech.
Okay.
So the Russians came into Lithuania in 1941. Mum had just been born. The Germans then came up and soundly kicked them out. The Germans were very horrible, horrible people and massacred hundreds of thousands of Lithuanian Jews. Then the Russians were coming back, and my mum's family went, "Fuck me. These Germans have been executing everyone. They're terrible. but the Russians are worse. So they got out of there and they fled with the retreating German army, and they never saw their homes again. And they ended up in a refugee camp in Germany, in the American sector when Germany was divided up. All the other Lithuanians got on boats to the US. My aunt had a cough. They thought it was TB. Wasn't. But they managed to talk someone into getting her onto a boat down to Australia, and they got off the boat in Adelaide. And that's that's how my mum's family came to Australia. She then met an officer who was out, a British Air Force officer who was out blowing up nuclear weapons out in the desert.
Yeah. Adam Woomera.
Maralinga, I think, one of those two. Anyway, she went back to the UK with him, and by then my father, who was in Prague, Prague was kind of rattling the cage a bit against the communists in the late 60s, and the Prague Spring happened in August 68. My dad was 24, and they were like, this democracy thing might be all right. Yeah, let's have a go. Yay, there's flowers and peace and flags. And the Russians went, how's fucking tanks sound? And as the tanks rolled down the street, my father managed to escape in the middle of the night, and didn't really see his home again. Found his way to London, and then met my mum. And then by then, my grandfather, who brought the family out to Australia, got sick, and then I was born. I was born by then, and we came out. I was 6 months old. I was born in the UK. I was born in the UK. So I am an immigrant, but I'm white, so no one cares.
Yeah. And also you have sorted out your citizenship.
I'm still dual citizenship at this point. I won't be running for office at any hurry.
Yeah, like James. Like James.
Oh, like
Matheson.
Your mate, Matheson.
He ran against Abbott.
He ran against Tony Abbott in the beautiful seat of
Warringah.
No, I was there because I was handing out flyers for him.
Warringah,
that's right. Warringah Mall. Yeah. He ran against Tones up in Warringah. Warringah doesn't even live. Tones doesn't even live in Warringah.
Just for the listeners who might have missed this. This is James Matheson,
who I used to host Channel V and then Australian Idol.
Yeah, so you guys had a decade, even more career.
We had a decade together, 8 years together.
Right.
Yeah.
And then since he's had a heap of media gigs since that. Was Channel 10 for
starting
many years.
lineup on the project.
Yeah,
he was fresh off the bench for the project.
Right. Yeah. And then eventually, made a run at politics, independent against Tony Abbott.
Yep.
And did very well.
Very well. Yeah, if you want to look it up, Jimmy going toe to toe with Andrew Bolt is one of the fucking best 10 minutes of television you'll ever see.
Yeah,
Bolty's so out of his depth, and Jimmy's not even cracking a sweat.
Just quickly back to your folks.
Yeah.
They never ended up in I guess you'd say, particularly living in Brisbane, an ethnic enclave of the likes of.
My dad actually, really interestingly, there was a bunch of other people that managed to escape in 68. And he and these four other Czech guys would meet every Friday or once a month, and they would just speak in Czech. But what they did is they kept this particular time capsule of language alive. There was no new words. You and I might use the word, say, for example, selfie, but 10 years ago, selfie didn't exist. Right? So there was no new words that came into their dialect, and they kept this bubble of language alive. And then so when he and I travelled back to Prague in 98, he was talking perfectly accentless Czech, but people would look at him like, what? You sound weird. Because he was like, I say, old chap, can you help us get here?
Yeah.
Because he sounds like a man from 50 years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was amazing. But it's through those things that, they most definitely, I guess the word would say, integrated. Yeah. But every now and again, if you've come here to this strange country where the birds don't sing the same, the sky looks different, the stars are weird, everything smells funny, everything smells like sulfur, you're going to want a little taste of home every now and again. And,
but there wasn't in Brisbane at the time was probably West End was Greek, New Farm was Italian. They didn't have the neighbours. They didn't.
No, it wasn't that situation. No, the Lithos, our nearest neighbours lived in Ferny Grove, which at that point was a. I love it, Brisbane. I love to just name shit after what it is. Ferny Grove, Redcliffe,
Kangaroo Point,
Red Hill. They just we'll call it what it is. What is it? We'll call it that. Brilliant. Let's go. Move on. It's
Even
not like here where everything's
Mountains.
that's Macquarie in Sydney.
Macquarie Bligh.
Yeah, everything's Macquarie. So no, that wasn't the neighbour situation. But I grew up with heaps of blokes that that did, particularly in the Italian community, and I always envied that. I always envied having that kind of just heaps of family around you. My wife wife has that, the Fijian. Obviously, Australia has a fairly giant South Pacific population. My wife's Fijian, and it's wonderful being around that many family. We had a small Mother's Day do back in Sydney the other day. Minimum small 22 people. It's fucking great.
Small,
great.
A lot afternoon tea,
mate. I don't know how much taro and cassava you get out here, but let me tell you, that stuff is good.
You enjoy it? Bit of
well,
taro?
I'm just going to say that as well. You don't get that kind of size from a rugby league forward pack by accident.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of root vegetables going on. There's a lot of root vegetables going on.
And diet wise, can you bolt down with your Fijian spreads?
Well, yeah. I mean, I know you all were just up in Beef Week, and I don't do Beef Week very proud in that I don't eat meat. And I haven't since 2002.
Do you eat dairy?
No,
I think so.
Just
you're plant-based,
mate.
Plant-based.
Just an old school vegan.
Just plants. Well, vegans will want to show you videos of things getting killed. I just eat plants.
Yeah, you don't do the. I'll send you a few links, mate.
No, you eat what you want to eat.
One thing I want to ask, and I don't want to glorify it because you've kind of touched on it. You were a bunch of kids, a big day out, livid.
Channel V. I was 25 when I started working there.
You had your own tents. Yeah. You had a very long ponytail.
Yes.
You were all wearing SMP. Mm-hmm. I remember you saying that. It was head to toe SMP. Was there a little bit of a feeling like the kids are running the asylum?
No, there wasn't, and I've got to put massive credit towards our management at the time, Barry and Jackie, and Ben, my executive producer, who just went. This is 1999, 2000. All right, if this was now, we would be Instagram influencers.
Yeah,
we were
sure.
people that didn't. There was nothing we didn't know. This is between Yumi, James, Jabba, Maya, myself, probably Mike, and Mary, who did the dance stuff. There was nothing or nobody that we weren't able to instantly talk about. In a time before Instagram comments and replying to Instagram comments, we had the telephone, and so people would just call us up, and in a day we would speak to someone from Parramatta, someone from Broken Hill, someone from Mount Isa, someone within half an hour we're talking to Australia. And the kid in North Shore, Sydney, who lives in Forest something, what's it called up there? French's Forest, who wants to hear the new Blink-182 song, is just as passionate as the kid in Mount Isa who wants to hear the new Blink-182 song. There was this divide of kind of mainstream of ideas like, country bumpkins, they know shit. No, they fucking don't. They've got high-speed internet and they've got satellite TV. They know everything that you know. They just have to drive 110 kilometres to get to school in the morning. So it really was an opportunity for our bosses to go, let's just take the most passionate people we can find and put them on television. It's now what we're doing right now, sitting around in your studio podcasting, which will then be distributed on the internet to people who are equally passionate. It's a similar version of that. So people found us. People just found us.
It was one of the bigger brands media-wise in that era.
For that demographic, absolutely. Old people had no idea who we were.
So how did you make the transition from being in the radio world to being onto television?
I was doing the midnight to dawn shift in Brisbane,
and
I just worked my ass off, and then I was like, I think I'm going to have to wait for one of the daytime jocks to die before I get a job when the sun is up. So I started asking heaps of people, and a gig came up in Adelaide. I went to Adelaide to do the afternoon show between noon and 3 p.m. Then someone, again, who I'd known at B105, an audio guy I'd known at B105, called me up one day and said, Nathan Harvey's just left Channel V, you should send a tape. And I mentioned that I'd been around Europe with my dad going back to Prague. I had an old hi-8 video camera that I had, and I was basically documenting his journey, and I would use the camera to, I just turn the camera back at myself. Now it's nothing for someone to stand there and point a camera at themselves, but then you're pretty fucking weird if
for sure.
You got tickets on
doing
yourself.
Doing a selfie with a chum
it was
camcorder.
And it took 10 seconds to pre-roll as well, so it took a long. You'd have to stand there and just kind of wait. Anyway, so I'd gotten very used to I'd done a lot, quite practiced at talking down the lens, and and so I just made a video and I sent it off to Channel V, and within 2 weeks, they said we'd love you to come and have a chat, and within 6 weeks I was on air.
Right.
I was in Adelaide for 4.5 months.
Yeah, right.
That's a long time.
It is, but I didn't know that. I just knew I had to leave Brisbane, and I think for a lot of
it was a beast though. Like it's one that everyone will remember, particularly that demographic.
Yeah, we were really lucky. We were really lucky because our mandate was just, just make it interesting. Just make it something that they can't get anywhere else. And this is in a time before YouTube.
Yeah.
All right. YouTube showed up in 2005, and that was the beginning of the end for us because no longer did you have to wait for us to give us a call or send us a fax or send us an email to try and get your favourite Ice Cube song on.
Yeah.
You could just watch it 15 times that day and get your fix.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
YouTube ended a lot of requests. Basically, YouTube ended music television.
Yeah.
And rightly so.
Yeah,
rightly so.
It was natural development. You're pretty, you're pretty. I guess the word is woke. That didn't shine through in the early part or the first half of your career.
It did on V. I could get away with it on V, but when you're hosting Australian Idol, you can't really start talking about live export and the amount of effluent produced by pig farming on television. People want to see the people sing. They don't want to hear me. Then if anything, I'll turn them off and they'll go, "Fuck you, I'm eating bacon."
So was there a moment in your life when you kind of channeled a lot more into that? Your thinking and your stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was going to go on tour with my band, and then all the gigs fell through. I'm like, fuck. Well, I've got this week off of work, which is really hard to get.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to go. All right. And so I heard about this place up out the back of Udalo, which is inland from Maroochydore in the mountains up there. Beautiful part of the world.
Glasshouse kind of.
Up there. The kind of a lot of dream catchers, a lot of crystals, and it's a place called Chenrezig. It's a Buddhist retreat, and I'd always kind of explored it and been interested in it, and I got up there, and that's when it all kind of like, oh shit, we are all one. And it all kind of hit me sitting on this rock in a gorge on a creek. I would basically take books from the library there that one of the Buddhist nuns gave me, and I would just go out in the woods and read these books and just kind of get, holy shit, okay, if the energy that I put out is coming back to me, okay then, all right. And it all kind of made sense.
And that was pre-Channel V.
It was like within 9 months, I'd left Brisbane, arrived in Adelaide, and got on television.
Do you think that kicked you into gear, that kind of thinking?
I think it absolutely solidified that if you do good stuff comes to you. If you look at the world through the eyes of love and gratitude and service, nothing but love, gratitude, and service will come back to you. If you look at the world through the eyes of fear and suspicion and anger, all you will see is fear, suspicion, and anger. But bear in mind, I had to learn that lesson over. It took until I got to sobriety to actually pull that shit into reality, because I went through the world not being the nicest person to some people and wondering, why has everything gone bad? Why have I lost all of my jobs? Why am I now unemployed? I had to finally realize, that thing I thought about on the rock 12 years ago, that's why. So it took a long time for me to actually start trying to put it into practice. And there's no way I'm perfect at all. I just noticed that when things are going bad, I'm like, why? What's my role in it? I've been okay. All right, okay. I've got to go clean that up.
So I guess you are pretty woke then. So, well, you just said that you've been, off the bad stuff.
Yeah.
How long have you been sober?
Sorry, I've never been able to taste your glorious hops of the Batuta Bitter, and I never will.
Yeah, no, we'll make an alcohol-free version.
But even though I still can't do it. I can't even drink kombucha. I'm the worst.
Right.
I can't go near Newtown for the smell of it. No, I can't. No, I can't.
Necessarily a bad thing.
It's because of the fermentation of it. Is enough to, when someone opens a bottle of Jose Cuervo, and if you've had a proper nostril spew down at the Broadbeach Tavern one time, and they open it across the room, you're like, oh fuck, just the smell of it is enough to...
Bundy has that. A lot of ex-Bundy drinkers. Okay.
The double OP, when someone cracks a bottle on double OP,
you remember that night.
No, I haven't had a drink. What's the date today? Is it the 18th?
The 17th.
17th. So I haven't had a drink. 8 years. 2 months and 4 days.
Is that through the program?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And I wouldn't be here without it.
The counting would insinuate.
Yeah. I wouldn't be here without it.
Yeah, right.
And I really, I'm a part of a fellowship of people that basically help each other not drink, basically, because no man's an island.
Religiously, spiritually, you come from a Jewish family. You had your trip to Israel.
My grandfather on my dad's side's Jewish.
Okay,
So my dad was born Catholic. I've got the right genes but the wrong chromosomes.
Right.
So I'm only Jewish from the waist up, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
But no.
Your kids aren't Jewish.
Sorry, that's a circumcision joke. But no, like there is a spiritual aspect to the program that I'm a part of. But like you can pick anything you want to be a higher power. Mine was the ocean.
Yeah.
All right. But I've heard of a bloke who picked his tractor.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. He's like, there's no fucking way I can't do this. I don't want to pray to God. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And in the program, we have someone like a mentor. His mentor says, well, what's bigger than you that you can't live without that if you don't have you? And he goes, my tractor. If I don't have my tractor, if I don't look after my tractor, if I don't respect my tractor, if I don't, I can't feed my family, I can't work my farm.
Yeah, right.
And so he would pray to his tractor, stayed, kept him sober.
Yeah. So you chose your own kind of angle. There's no particular religion you follow?
No. When you get into the program, it's basically of your understanding. Whatever you decide, it's going to be it. That's it.
But in general, there was a name change there. Was that a religious thing?
That was a Kabbalist thing.
Yeah,
that was definitely a Kabbalist thing. But I'm certainly not the first bloke to change my name. Both my parents changed their names.
Yeah, right. Anglicising or?
I beg your pardon?
Was it Anglicising or was that just them themselves?
Just like don't want to be that anymore because they have weird Euro names. I don't want to be that anymore. I want to be this. Oh, so yeah, a bit of Anglicising, but also like doesn't work. But with me, the name change was
spiritual.
It was a spiritual thing. It was a reinvention. I had a divorce beard at the time, which is not unlike the beard you're sporting now.
Bit more pepper.
Just way patchier, way more pepper. It's the beard you grow when you're like, I haven't showered in 3 days because I'm so fucking sad that I'm alone now. And a friend took me up the mountain in Colorado to get me out. I was on my birthday. I was on my 38th birthday, I think. 38th birthday. Yeah. I went up the mountain and I hadn't skied in years. And I was like, fuck it, it's my birthday. Let's go skiing. I've been snowboarding the whole time. So I went up the mountain, a snowboarder called Andrew, and I came down. There's a skier called Osher, and that was it. But, I basically met a guy who told me that if I changed my name, I'd change my life. He was right. I did, and it did.
Everyone's had a rebrand, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've absolutely. It's an aggressive rebrand. There's another one coming. Don't worry.
Yeah. You're not done yet.
Well, is it easier now compared to, having to interview, everyone from Elton John to the Hilltop Hoods? Is it easier now being on television as it was then, like as Osher, as opposed to? No,
that's good. No, not at all. No, that was just a very personal thing. No, interviewing is something.
Work.
Interviewing is something I've done since I started in radio. Since I was 20 when I started in radio, so I've been doing this. This is my 25th year of broadcasting. The thing about interviewing for me is that if you're not, it's like any job, if you're not constantly finding ways that you can refine what you do, work gets boring and you want to find something else to do.
Yeah.
So I have a podcast now, which I dearly love. We use the same podcasting equipment. It's a roadie. It's a professional's choice. And I enjoy very much just connecting with people, in an interview situation. Yep. And I learned through great teachers at Channel V that, when I thought about my most successful interviews and the things that I got the best content out of, the best stuff out of, was it wasn't an interrogation. It was, I'm making a safe space into which the truth can flow. Mm-hmm. All right? I'm not Lee Sales. I'm not, I'm not
Denton.
I'm not Barry Cassidy. I'm not there to kind of nail someone to the floor and get an answer out of them. I'm like...
Well, we're going to be coming on too. Next time we're in Sydney, we're going to be coming on...
you're going to come down? That'll be great.
Yeah. Let's just give it an official plug now. Your podcast is called?
The Osher Günsberg Podcast. If you're listening to this on a podcast app, which you probably are, you just go search whatever app you're in.
5 stars. Everyone knows the deal.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
There it is there. What would a
Subscribe.
Batuta audience would get a kick out of? Which episode would they probably get a kick out of? Oh, goodness. I don't know. I think the Brett Robbo is a really interesting one. He's a performance coach who worked as the head coach for the New South Wales Institute of Sport, and then the Australian Institute of Sport, coaching Paralympic athletes in their quadrennial cycles of achievement. And he's got some hella deep knowledge to drop on basically focusing your life and getting your shit together.
Yeah, right. One thing, this has led us to our next question.
Hit me.
Do you honestly get emotional during those rose ceremonies?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And a part of sobriety is having these things called emotions now that I'm not so completely insulated in my brain. It's just like fucking my brain chemistry, so I can't actually activate the parts of my brain that feels things like empathy. Like you'll stand there and here's this man that you've come to know, particularly like if it's The Bachelor. Here's this man that you come to know over the last couple of weeks, and he's a good-looking fella. He's cut like a chopped salad. He's successful. He's good, but he's still single for some reason, and he doesn't know why. And then he's got he's really interested in this girl, but there's this other lady. I haven't given him enough roses, and he's got this. I'm sorry, buddy, you're gonna have to choose one of them. And then it breaks his heart. And then there's this woman who's put her life and her career and everything on hold to come and hopefully find love, fall in love, and she's breaking her heart. And she's like, you feel that, man. You feel that. It permeates your soul.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of getting better about processing it afterwards. But yeah, absolutely. The early episodes of Idol, on Monday nights when we kicked the kids off, I'd cry on the side of the stage.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but then I learned to harden my heart against that and just get this kind of like cold, onyx-based rock within me that lasted for a couple of years.
To his new glaze of it.
No, what was it then? It was Cooper's Pale. It was Cooper's Pales back then.
Yeah. Now, just quickly, Honey Badger, Nick Cummins.
Yeah.
How does he go? Are you seeing much of him in action?
Oh yeah, he and I work together every day.
So how does he respond? Obviously, the iconic Honey Badger, Super Rugby sensation back when the game was really hitting its straps, and Western Force when they were hitting their straps. RIP. The Honey Badger, obviously full of colloquialisms. That's not programmed. That comes naturally. Like that, he hasn't. Tell us in your personal interactions with him. Is he that? Is he the Honey Badger?
Yeah. Nick Cummins is a absolutely golden human being from Bow Desert.
Yep.
Which is the kind of weird bit inland, not quite Toowoomba, not quite Mooloolaba.
It's on the road to Texas.
Not quite Beenleigh, kind of Dolby-ish.
Heading towards Gold Coast hinterland.
Yeah. It's kind of on the other side of that. Never really went into town much. Is many, I think he's one of 8.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute heart of gold. Incredible man. People are really going to be fascinated by this guy because they may have only, seen, a 3-minute long highlight reel of Nick Cummins' sideline comments. Mm-hmm. That's what they know about him. And they've seen a tradie ad and they go, great, I know this man. You don't know him. Mm. He
doesn't wear tape, though, in the show.
He's well, maybe. Certain scenes that may require. No. His attitude to life and the way he talks himself through things that are in front of him really inspirational. He takes the various challenges that are set before him and he sees it and he goes, okay, how are we going to work around this? This is the difficult thing. How can I adapt? How can I overcome? Okay, go. And he verbalizes a lot. He's a fascinating guy. He gets present. He meditates. He goes for a walk in the bush a lot to recenter himself. He's a really interesting cat. Really interesting cat. I'm really excited that people are going to get to know him.
Yeah. No, it sounds like it's going to be good fun.
Yes.
What else are you working on outside of the podcast?
I'm writing
TV?
a book,
You're
as I
writing
mentioned.
the book?
Yeah, I'm writing the book at the moment. So when you write a book, you don't just write a book. You write it like 4 times. You have to go, as you both know, when you publish it, like, okay, and done. Like, oh, no, we'll come back for this edit. And done. And then there's this edit. And done. Okay, now we're going to go and put all the commas back in. It's like, you got to do it like, so I'm in the middle of that.
It's a full-time job, really.
Yeah, that and, trying to be sure that I'm the best husband and stepfather that I can be because as rewarding as work is, you've got to pay your bills, but what are you doing it for? You're doing it so you can have these, beautiful moments with your family. So, making sure that there's time to be a husband and to be a stepfather and to be there for these 2 incredible women in my life is a real thing that I've worked very hard at trying to make sure that I get right. I'm never going to get right, but I try.
Well, I think on that note, thank you for coming and speaking to us, and we'll we'll be on your show.
I look forward to that.
Next time we come down to Sydney for some reason.
Well, I hope it's a good reason.
Origin. It'll be Origin.
Yeah. That's
God, big news with the retirement the other day.
yeah.
Shocker.
Bloody hell. That's right. I'm pretty sure someone's just engraved a trophy already with Queensland and just like, only if something terrible happens will they change it over.
Yeah, I know.
My poker boys, they are not happy. But you see, I grew up in a time when we would just lose all the time. All the time.
And then we had the decade.
Yeah. It's like, it's like Bjelke Peterson. Let's not forget that there was a time when we had nothing.
Yeah.
We had nothing.
Yeah.
But I still get confused when suddenly Alan Langer's on the field.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing, Alfie?
Alfie's in the
Why are you still
high
here?
Yeah.
Job for life at the Broncos.
It's been a pleasure, gentlemen. Don't stop what you're
right.
doing. It's very important that what you're doing is...
Thank you, mate.
Thank you, Osher.
All
right. And that was Osher Günsberg. Coming up to the top of the hour, we have the news bulletin up next with Bruce Hitchcock, and after that we have Hello Sport.
Yes, and while we have you here, we will remind you that Batuta Bitter is now available via ALM. If you run a bottle shop out there, we are distributing around the country. It's available to anyone who is willing to serve it, and if it's already stocked in your local, please join us and support this regional empire we are building in the Channel Country.
And my name is Errol Parker. Until next week, keep your hands and feet to yourself.
I'm Clancy Overall. You be kind to each other.
Great listeners are great learners, right? Well, hear this. Zookle has the cheapest textbooks with up to 70% off. You can even rent them. With a lowest price guarantee and free delivery for orders over $50, the only question is, what are you waiting for? Apart from the end of your podcast. From Shakespeare to marketing to essay writing to video production and everything in between, check out Zookle. Use the code ZooklePodcast for $5 off. Zookle.com.au